Hey everybody, Brian from the Cabinet Joint here. We're talking about a base range 4-drawer today. Most of it's going to be assembly, but of course I do want to talk a little bit about the nuances of this cabinet, size ranges, and also the cabinet before you here is not really a base range 4-drawer. We are using it as such, but it's kind of a modified version, so I want to explain that a little bit. First of all, what is a base range 4-drawer? Range tops, which is different than a set-in cooktop. A range top is where your controls are on a big panel across the front. They're typically gas. They set in the cabinet. They're called professional series cooktops. Very popular these days as the appliance packages grow and grow and grow. We often see appliance packages that are more than the cabinet budget. As these appliance packages get more elaborate, we're seeing a lot of these base range tops. So we have come up with a series of cabinets that allow a base range top. Typically, if you look in our catalog, the base range top, it ends up creating a U that the range top would set into. This customer, this is a job going through our shop here in Gettysburg at our shop at Rock Creek. This customer didn't want the uprights here. They're just going to put it right up against the adjacent cabinetry, which is fine. So they actually ordered a kind of a different cabinet that we then put a custom front frame on. So this is not really a base range 4-drawer. It's being used as such. But what you have to understand with a base range 4-drawer right out of the catalog, and we're going to throw a picture up right now of the standard cabinet, you will have this as a difference where you have the uprights going up on both sides to create a U. The cabinet's only available 34.5 high with those uprights. This top sits flush with the front frame that you can set your range top on it. You'll hear me talk about that during the assembly as well. So that's a little bit of a difference. And the other thing different than this cabinet is showing is the cabinet sides project backwards 3 inches. So if the cabinet's 24 deep, the cabinet back is set into the 21-inch depth mark with 18-inch deep drawers. And the reason is they typically think that you're going to use this for gas, and they want to have a cavity behind the cabinet back, a 3-inch cavity for you to run your gas lines so that they don't interfere with your drawers. Again, this customer wanted something very different. It assembles much the same. Your cabinet back will be a little bit different, but the result is the customer wants to set their range on top of this, and that's the end result. So as it comes out of the catalog, the base range 4-drawer BR4D cabinet is available 36 wide to 48 wide. You can do 24, 27, or 30-inch deep, and it has to be in 3-inch increments because of the depth of the drawers. So remember, the drawer boxes are always going to be, on the standard BR4D, they're always going to be 6 inches less than the cabinet depth. So if it's a 27-inch deep cabinet, your drawer boxes will be 21 because of that 3-inch cavity at the back. Heights, it's only available 34.5. Again, their intention is that the top of the cabinet, that U, is going to set at the 34.5 mark. Now, you may have a very strange range top and you need a custom front frame or a custom box, which is what happened here, where you want your drawers squattier or because your range top is so much taller, or maybe yours is a very small range top, whatever. Our sales reps, cabinet coaches, can customize a front frame and put it on a box to get you a base range 4-drawer cabinet to achieve the same thing without using the standard box. I know this is very complicated. Your cabinet coach can walk you through it. So let's now jump into the assembly of the BR4D cabinet. Okay, before we dive into our assembly of this base range 4-drawer, let's go through tools that you're going to need. We have a tools video referenced below. You can go watch that. It's much more exhaustive in terms of the tools that we show for all of our cabinets, but this cabinet's pretty standard, so all we're really going to need is our bottle of glue. We use Type Bond 2, Type Bond 3 works, just any white wood glue. We don't recommend the Gorilla type foaming glues. You just want a white wood glue. We've got a rubber mallet. We use a dead blow, but you can also we've got one up here. You can get for $5 or $6, I think. Lowe's sells just a rubber mallet. That'll work fine too. You're gonna need a pencil, just for marking scribe lines. We have our wet rag, and then we have our Boss-Stitch stapler. Just shoots a normal staple. We use 1 inch. You can use up to 1 1/4 inches. You just gotta be a little more careful with the staple blowing out here and there, but 1 inch seems to work fine. Remember, the only point of the staples is to hold the cabinet together while the glue dries. You can also use typical brad nailer if you want to. So if you don't have a stapler kicking around, just a single pin, 18 gauge would work fine as well. We just like the 2 points of contact that the staple offers, a little more secure. And then of course you need compressed air, so some sort, a little bottle compressor or whatever you got kicking around. Okay, what I've got in front of me here is my front frame. As I mentioned in the intro, this is a little bit of a deviation from our standard base range 4-drawer, being that this customer didn't want the little ears sticking up. So this assembly is going to be a little bit different. It's pretty much identical. The things that would affect you, or the things that are different, would not affect you in terms of the assembly. So I'll kind of talk about those as we go through. What you will notice is here and on my cabinet back, we are all prepped for the hardware. So if you're an inset customer, these have to be mounted. And so go to the video reference below that talks about how to hardware your cabinets. If you're insets, you got to have all this done. If it's a wall cabinet, you want your hinge brackets on before you assemble the box. It gets very difficult to work inside the cabinet to put these parts on after assembly. And then of course, overlay or inset, we always recommend putting your brackets on. Got a video reference below that talks about if you don't have the pilot holes to put the hardware on, what to do in that case. So lots of videos below you can reference to go see more information on some of the things I'm talking about. So I'm all hardwared and ready to go. First thing I'm going to do is grab my bottle of glue. And as every video you've probably watched on this, we're just going to glue the shoulders on the left and right side. And if you can't get your glue bottle in beyond that bracket, just kind of work around it. So I want to glue left and right side, and then I'm going to glue the full top. This cabinet does not get spreader strips, it gets a full lid across the top. So I'm going to glue the shoulder on the outside facing. If I go on the inside, it's going to squeeze to the inside of the cabinet, which you're going to see. So we want to put the glue up here on this shoulder and on this shoulder, so that when I push that in, any glue squeezes out to the unfinished part of the cabinet. All right. So I'm going to finish gluing up. I got this thing here to do, and then we'll come back and show you how to start putting the sides and the tops and bottoms in. Okay, in terms of parts and pieces with this cabinet, all I get with this cabinet is a front frame, the left and right side, the cabinet back, the top and bottom, which I have over here, and then this toe board nailer bracket. The first thing I'm going to do is grab my cabinet side, and using my finger, I'm going to line the bottom of that panel up with the bottom of the front frame, and just tap that in. If you don't want to use the palm of your hand, this is where the dead blow comes in. Just got to tap that into place. Same on this cabinet side. And those splines will kind of dig in and hold the panel for you. Now I got to do the gluing on the cabinet sides in this dovetail here. So I'm going to start halfway, and I'm going to spread that glue halfway up the dovetail. The reason halfway is if you start down here, when you slide that panel in, it's going to mash all the glue down in here and make a really big mess. So we want to just do halfway and let the dovetail, when I push the panel in, let that smear it down. So now I'm going to grab my cabinet bottom, and I want to keep the finished side in, unfinished side out, and I want to make sure my splines are down. So I got these black splines that are going to go into the front frame. I'm going to line up my dovetails and then slide that panel in. Sometimes your panels may be stiffer than that. That one went in pretty easily. If you're a little bit stiffer, that's okay. It just makes a tighter assembly. Got to remember, this is a wood joint. Due to moisture or whatever, the joints can open up or close during shipping. So sometimes you might have to fight that panel a little more. Not a big deal though. Now I'm going to grab my cabinet top, and working away from you here, you're not going to see me for a minute. Same thing, line the dovetails up, drop that panel in. And this is one area where we had to deviate. While this is a base range 4-drawer cabinet, if you ordered the real base range 4-drawer that had the ears sticking up, as per the picture on screen, this top would actually be flush with the front frame. Reason being, this top acts as the support for the range top when you set it in. In truth, this cabinet was ordered as a case-only cabinet with a custom frame to achieve a base range 4-drawer. That's why the assembly is really not any different. But that is a nuance that if you do an actual base range 4-drawer with the cabinet ears sticking up, with the front frame ears, this will be flush with your front frame. So this customer will have to put something in here to bolster that up and get it flush. Okay, now I'm going to put my cabinet back on. So grabbing my glue, going to run a bead of glue along the edge. And when I say the edge, there's a rabbet here that's vertical, and then you got the little horizontal. We want to put the glue along the vertical because our 1/2-inch plywood is not finished on the edge. And so I want unfinished wood to unfinished wood here. So I want to orient my glue bottle this way with the nozzle going this way. and run that glue along that vertical, unfinished shoulder of the cabinet side. Now I'm going to take my cabinet back, very critical. I want to make sure I have my brackets oriented right. So once you put these on, there is a top and bottom to this cabinet back, and you want to get it oriented correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this on. We line up our dados on the back. And now, this is where you will need your dead blow or your rubber mallet. I'm just going to tap that down. Listen here. Hear that thud? That means that panel is down nice and tight. And you can see it. You want 1/4 of an inch all along here. If you are sticking up, you'll kind of see it visually, and you can just smack that down. Okay. Now we're going to get our pencil, and there's 2 ways to do this. One is get a straight edge or a square. Lots of people have any size framing square kicking around, and you can lay the framing square here. Turn the cabinet so you can see a little better. Lay the framing square here. What we're trying to find is the center of the cabinet, top and bottom. So pick the little notch in your framing square and just use it as your guide. I just use my finger, it's faster. So you can find the center and use your middle finger as the guide, and then just run a quick scribe line along the outer edge. Now we're going to go through and do our stapling. So I'm going to connect my air, and I'm going to follow the scribe line I just made. Put pressure down with your hand to make sure that cabinet back is still seated, and then just follow that line about every 3 or 4 inches. Okay, my cabinet sides are on. If you were to have a flush end on the side of the cabinet, the way you would handle that is disconnect your air, pull this little protective finish tip off the nailer, the stapler, and now connect your air again, and you can run the stapler into the corner, keeping the heel of the gun down. You don't want to do this, because what we're trying to do is toenail the staples or the brads into the cabinet side to hold the back to the side. So we're going to go like this all the way down instead of here, because if this is a finished side, I can't put staples here. So I'm going to put my tip back on, reconnect my air, and now all along my cabinet back, I've got holes every 5 inches, okay? These holes are not where you put a screw. They're just marking holes to show you where the dead center of this panel is, so I can go ahead and staple my cabinet back to my cabinet top and bottom. So my intention here is to put a staple about 1/2 inch on either side of all these holes all the way down. So I use my finger as a guide, putting the center of my stapler right next to the hole, and I just work my way down. Okay, we're in the final stages here. A couple things I want to show you, because again, got to stress, this is not your traditional base range forge work cabinet the way it looks in the catalog. Our sales rep actually had to do a little bit of a case only option with a custom frame to get this customer what they wanted. So I do want to show you what's going to be different. If you order out of the catalog, your cabinet back is actually set 3 inches in. So if my cabinet's 24, my cabinet back is set in 3 inches, meaning my interior space is smaller, so my drawer boxes are not 21 deep, they're 18 deep. And the reason that back is set in and making my cabinet sides project back 3 inches is if it's a gas cooktop, you have to have a cavity back here to run your gas. Otherwise, your drawer boxes are going to be in the way. I believe this customer is doing some kind of an electric cooktop, so they did not need that space in the back. Does not affect your assembly. The cabinet back goes on the same way. It's really not that big of a deal. I just want to let you know that you are going to see a little bit of a difference there. So let's set this down, and remember the top is going to be flush. Now, regardless, if I still had my ears sticking up like a traditional base range forge drawer, my cabinet sides are also sticking up, and we always want to make sure our front frame is level with our cabinet side. And in this case, my cabinet side's a little high. So I'm going to flush that out. And then I'm going to check that one. That one's perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to use my wet rag, look inside the cabinet. Actually, I don't have any squeeze out except in this upper right corner. The last thing is this toe board backer strip. This is optional. It comes with every cabinet we sell you. It mounts in here between the cabinet sides, and you can put a couple of pins through the cabinet side. If it's a flush end, you got to put a block back here to nail it to. Its only intent is to give you something solid to nail your finished toe kick to all the way across. Some customers like this, some choose not to use it. I want to make you aware of something. If you put this in all of your cabinets, many times your installer will have to just take it right back out because you might have an air duct return that has to come into the toe kick. You might have to get shims in the back and they can't reach in there with this in the way. So we choose not to put this in. When we do our own assemblies, we send this along and the customer can put it in if they want. We do not like it for the installation purposes. So, leg labelers are impossible to get to. So an optional piece, but that's how you put it in, is just pin it through the side and it lines up flush with your toe box. Okay, so that wraps up the assembly. We're gonna go ahead and put some drawer boxes and drawer fronts on this cabinet, get it packed up and ready to go to the customer. As always, we appreciate you watching. Have any questions, give your cabinet coach a call, 888-211-6482. Have a great day.